Hello, my name is Steve Russell. It is April 6th, 2025, and we are located at the Randell Research Center in Bokeelia, Florida, which is on Pine Island. The Randell Research Center is a program of the Florida Museum of Natural History. Today I will be recording a tour being given by Kevin Lollar, who is a tour guide here at Randell. The tour will cover in part the Calusa people who lived and thrived here where we are standing for many hundreds of years.
So this particular image is the same setting as that one, except that one is looking down from the top of that mound. This is us looking up at that mound from what is the canal, all righty? So, so far everything we've been talking about concerning the Calusa is just purely academic stuff, okay? The Calusa got here in such and such a year, they built a city, they killed Juan Ponce de Leon, nothing but the facts. But what about the Calusa themselves? What were they like? And I asked that because, you know, when I first started working out here, I thought, well, yeah, the Calusa are pretty neat. They fish and I fish, you know, they love the water and I like the water and everything. But I always had this feeling that there was something, they just have no connection with me. They didn't have any of the same values that I have in my, you know, European background and all that. After working here for a while, started realizing the Calusa were like us a whole lot. We have a whole lot in common with them. First of all, for example, they love music. The Spanish talk about they love to sing, they love to dance. When the Spanish did come back 45 years after they killed Juan Ponce de Leon, the Spanish brought European musical instruments. And the Calusa loved it. They played songs, and every time they got done with a song, the Calusa would say, play another one, all right? So they love music. Well, so do we, all right? Everybody likes music, whether it's, you know, it could be classical or rock or, you know, country or rap or whatever, you know, Zydeco. We like music, just like they did, okay? They also were great artists. They loved art. They were expert carvers. They carved wood, they carved deer bone. We have found birds. We have found, we used to have an animal called the red wolf here. We found carved red wolves. We've caught, oh, our logo right there, okay? That's this. We found this during Year of the Indian too. It's obviously a wading bird of some sort. Okay? But what's kind of neat about this is a deer bone, and it wasn't this big. It's about this big. Okay, so you don't have somebody just carving away like this. You got some teeny tiny little deer bone, and this person is just meticulous, maybe with a shark's tooth, meticulously carving this thing. And we think it was some kind of a pin, maybe a hairpin or something, but that's just really neat. Also during Year of the Indian too, we found what would be the top part of a wading bird's head. We didn't find the bottom part, but we found the top part and had holes evenly spaced, so probably a hinge to put the bottom part on. And what did they do with that? Well, they could have made just like a puppet and go around to the kids going, hey kids, how you doing, like this, you know, or maybe a Calusa ventriloquist, I don't know. Or they could have put it on a big long wooden neck and had strings coming down, put on a person's arms, go like this, and the mouth goes like that. You know, you could chase the kids around or something, okay? But fun stuff. This is fun stuff. Also, the Key Marco cat. Anybody ever heard of that? Okay. Those of you who hadn't, it's a figurine about this tall, carved in wood. And it is, you can look at it and you say, I know exactly what species that is. It's a Florida panther. You can tell exactly what that is. And he's sitting there like this, like, you know, cats are always, when they sit, their paws are just like that, just exactly what this thing does. But you pick it up and you look at it, the top part is a panther. The bottom part is a human being. So he's got human legs down below and a panther body, which is pretty neat. And I don't know why that, you know, what it means, but it's there. They're also great painters. We have paintings of birds, we have paintings of alligators, we have paintings of people. So these guys were artistic. Well, so are we. I mean, don't have to be artistic, but we appreciate art. What did they do with their art? They would hang it on their walls because it's pretty. We all do this, right? I mean, everybody's got stuff hanging on their walls at home. And so that's what these people did. They loved art. They loved music. But here's an interesting thing. Art and music are not necessary for Calusa survival. It's not necessary for ours either. We just do it because we like it, okay? They're like us because they do things not to get by, they do these things to make life more fun. Right? So go to the next sign over here. Okay, among the things that the Calusa also carved were these really neat masks. And they would hang those on the walls, again, because it's really nice art. The Spanish didn't like them. They said each one was worse than the other, but, you know, I like them a lot. Another thing that the Calusa really liked was jewelry. They love jewelry. The Spanish talk about it, and we found a lot of it. Okay? They made some of their own jewelry, and they got jewelry from Spanish shipwrecks. Well, we have jewelry too. I think everybody here has probably at least one piece of jewelry, okay? And we don't need that. We do it because we like it. You know, I got my ear pierced in May of 1974, right after I graduated from college. And I've had this earring, not the same one, but, you know, because I like it. It's there, right? They also painted themselves. They loved the body art. We don't think they tattooed. There's no reference to tattooing, but the Spanish talk about how they painted almost every day. What does that have to do with us? Well, cosmetics, you know, $1 billion industry. And some of us don't wear makeup, but some of us got tattoos, right? So it's body art. We like this stuff. For paint, the Calusa used the sap of a strangler fig, which is latex. They made latex paint. And they would color it with local things such as blush berries. But they also, we found in that mound during Year of the Indian II, ochre, which is iron oxide. Okay? And that's, you know, you find it in, you know, in the earth, and it's different colors of shades of orange and red, right? And they put that in the paint to give it color, because you don't want all of your makeup to be the same. We also found in that mound during Year of the Indian II, galena, which is lead ore. They would take that and crush it up and put it in the paint, made the paint sparkle, like we have glitter cosmetics. See, this is a lot like us. But remember, it's not what you find, it's what you find out. We're finding this stuff, but what are we finding out? Well, yes, they like makeup or painting, and they like different colors, and they like glitter, but ochre does not occur in Florida, anyplace. The ochre that we found came from Georgia, 300 miles away. Galena does not occur here in Florida. The galena we found came from southeast Missouri. Okay, that's 1,000 miles away. Okay. Ooh, we're starting to find things out about the Calusa. Okay. Also during Year of the Indian II, you know, you're scraping away in your pit and you're looking for the big ticket items, you know, artifacts and you know, stone cutting tools and things like that, right? And then you're scraping all this stuff up and you put it in your little dustpan, you put it in a bucket, and then they take the bucket and they put it in a screen, somebody goes through that. Well, during Year of the Indian II, we found chili pepper seeds and papaya seeds. All right? That's great. Well, chili peppers and papayas don't occur naturally in Florida. Okay? These are the only chili pepper seeds ever found in an archaeological context east of the Mississippi River. The only papaya seeds ever found in an archaeological context in North America. What are we finding out? What does this tell us? We're finding these things, they're trade. They trade. Exactly. They're a part of this huge trading network. They're getting, you know, galena from Missouri. They're getting chili peppers from New Mexico or someplace. Okay? They're getting papayas from Cuba or wherever. Okay? They're part of this huge trading network. But here's the thing about all these things we're talking about, the ochre, the galena, the chili peppers, the papayas, none of that stuff is necessary. They don't need these things. They get these things because they make life more fun. You know, even to the point of glitter stuff for their paint. But also papayas. They got enough food around here. They don't need papayas and chili peppers and things like that. They're doing what we do. We buy stuff that we don't really need. We just do it because it makes life more fun. It's like you're a Calusa and you've got this big pot full of, you know, oyster stew or clam chowder or something. There's all kinds of seafood in there. And you taste it and you say, boy, I wish I had something to make this a little spicier. Oh, I know, I got chili peppers. I'm gonna throw some of those in there. And you get done and you say, boy, what do we got for dessert? Oh, the papayas are ready, okay? They don't need that stuff. You know, I was in Publix yesterday, and out there in the front, they got a bin, and Pepperidge Farm cookies were BOGO. I didn't need those, but I got them, all right, because I really like them. Makes life more fun. Exactly. So anyway, huge trading network. What did the Calusa use as trade? Okay, if they're trading close around, say Miami Indians in the middle of the state, oh, you might, the guy shows up and says, hey, I got 10 deer pelts. What do you got? Well, I got 20 pounds of smoked mullet. Sure, great trade, okay? But suppose somebody shows up down here with, I got 5 pounds of galena. What do you got? Oh, I'll give you 10 pounds of mullet. No, because I'll eat that before I get back to, up there. I want something that I can take and trade so it'll, get more trade down this way. They had one thing that they traded that was the most important thing that they had, which is this, okay? Lightning whelk, right. Lightning whelks only occur around the Gulf Coast and up the east coast of South Carolina. But we have found lightning whelks, whole lightning whelks, or parts of lightning whelks, tools made from lightning whelks, all up the Mississippi Valley. We've found them in Oklahoma and Illinois and in North Dakota and in Canada. Why? We don't find these other shells. We don't find, this is a tulip, right? Tulip shell. We don't find these. We don't find any other kinds of shell in those archaeological contexts. Only this one. Why? Well, here's why. You got two main kinds of shelled mollusks. You got bivalves, which are your clams, oysters, two-part mollusks. Then you got these one-part mollusks, okay, called gastropods. Worldwide, there's 70 to 80,000 species. Okay. Worldwide, 96, 97% of those, and all of them, except for the lightning whelk, opens on the right side. Lightning whelk opens on the left side. Isn't that cool? Locals, old timers around in Florida will call this a left-handed whelk, not a lightning whelk. The point of that is, it's not the left-handedness, okay? It's the spire, this part right here. On a right-handed gastropod, the spire goes counterclockwise. Left-handed, it goes clockwise. And that's important because a lot of indigenous people thought that the sun would rise, cross the sky, and set and rise again in a clockwise path. So you've got sunrise, and you've got daytime, sunset, sunrise, daytime, sunset, life, birth, life, death, rebirth. Look out. All right.
Morning, y'all.
So this shell becomes this mystical piece representing life and death. A lot of indigenous dances, especially funeral dances, go in a clockwise spiral like that. And the burial mounds, when Cushing was here, the burial mounds were still intact, and he found that they had, sorry about that, folks. He found that they had paths from the bottom to the top, and they were clockwise path. That's why this particular shell is so important. So what do you do with these? Well, you make tools, for one thing. Okay, this is a lightning whelk. This is an actual Calusa tool. All right? And I gotta tell everybody when I bring these out that this was not found in an archaeological context. Okay, I found this in a vacant lot. My mom used to live 4 miles down that way on a shell road. And as we said, people came out here in the early 20th century, started tearing down these mounds and making roads out of them. And my mom lived on one of those roads, and the vacant lot next door had this in it. When I was over there one day and I took it in to the archaeologists, and they said, yes, this is a type A cutting tool. And what you did when you found one of these really robust lightning whelks, first thing you do is punch a hole right there. And we have dozens of these, maybe hundreds of them, and they're all the same. Okay, and then you punch a hole right there. and you cut a notch right there. And then you can see, if you line it up, the notch and the hole line up directly right next to what's known as the columella. Okay, and you can see right through there. Then you take a big heavy stick, run it through there, lash it down with deer tendon, sharpen this side, and that's how you clear the land. That's how you cut a tree down. Okay? That's how you dig out a canoe. Seriously, okay? Another important tool for the Calusa, and again, I found this out in Pine Island Sound. It wasn't from an archaeological site. The official name of this is just a vessel. It's a drinking cup, all right? And if you notice this, it's got a hole right there. And you notice it's pretty darn symmetrical. This hole didn't just get there because it was rolling on in Pine Island Sound, okay? It got there because, okay, let's say I'm a Calusa, and this is mine. Okay? Nobody drinks out of this except me. When I die, y'all are my family. You don't want anybody else drinking out of it, so you punch a hole in it, okay? That's what's known as ritually killing the vessel. And indigenous people all through North and Central and South America do that. Okay? A lot of other people, made their drinking cups, their vessels out of clay. And so they would punch a hole. A lot of times it's just a round hole, okay? And sometimes they break the whole thing. And some indigenous people, we don't know about the Calusa because the Spanish didn't tell us, but for some indigenous people, the vessel itself has a spirit. So if you punch a hole in it, the spirit gets away and goes with the dead person to the afterlife. We don't know if the Calusa did that or not. One other thing that you can do with lightning whelks is make art. Because remember, art is important. And if you look at this here, take a look at that. Okay, this is a lightning whelk. And you can see that what they've done is they've cut off the sharp bottom of it, okay, and they've carved it. This is what's called a falcon warrior, okay, and it depicts a person wearing a feather cloak. And up here's his head, he's got a mask of a falcon on there, and he's saying something, all right? But you can see he's got feathers and all that. Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
Lightning whelk. Okay. But here's what's really neat about it. Archaeologists found this at the Spiro Mound Complex in eastern Oklahoma. They didn't find it here where these guys live, where these whelks live. They found it in Oklahoma. So somehow this made it up there, and either they carved it up there, somebody carved it here, somebody carved it along the way. But this is from the Gulf Coast probably, and ended up in Oklahoma. So this is a very important.
Would that have been a trade item?
Had to be a trade item. And here's another thing, I'm just gonna throw this out there. I don't know if I did this last time you were here. It's not as if the Calusa said, oh, we're out of glitter stuff. Let's paddle up the Missouri, go up the Mississippi and get some. What probably happened was somebody up there loaded up a canoe with galena and paddled down to where maybe Memphis is and traded that to somebody there. And then they kept some of that and they took some more and they went down to maybe where Vicksburg is and then went down to maybe where New Orleans is and then on down to here. Okay. So that's how these things get around. Okay. So anyhow, the Calusa diet. This city, all these mounds made out of shell, whole city, big mounds. Mound Key, Calusa, the capital, 125 acres. It's an island made completely of shells. And a whole bunch of shells, mountains, islands out in Pine Island Sound and other places like Hemp Key and Jocelyn and Galt Island, places like that, made by the Calusa out of shells. So what do you suppose their number one source of protein was? Mollusk, right? Yeah. Right, shellfish. No, that's not right. Okay. Up until Year of the Indian 2, we thought that's what was the case. Obviously, tons of mollusks. You're digging away, like I said, and you're scraping away, and you're getting all this stuff, and you're putting it in your bucket, and they go through it, and so these people sit down with all this stuff. There are a lot of fish bones in there. And they identified all these fish, and they determined that 70 to 80% of the Calusa's protein came from fin fish, not shellfish. So you gotta think that's a whole lot of fish, because you got, see those mounds there? But 70 to 80% was fin fish, 50 species, and it's all the stuff we still eat. Snook and redfish and sea trout and sheephead, a lot of sharks and a lot of stingrays, and a whole lot of mullet, okay? But it was shellfish, excuse me, it was fin fish. Also shellfish and other protein with stuff like alligators, birds, sea turtles, but fin fish is where it was at for these folks. You can't just live on protein, so they ate various kinds of berries. Strangler figs have figs. There's a plant called arrowroot, also known as kunti. The root of that can be made into bread. They still call it Seminole bread. So you have starch. So you got this really well-rounded diet, but it's fish that made these people go. Okay, so go back to that sign for a second. The Calusa are what archaeologists call a complex society. And there's three things that make up a complex society. First, it's you stay in one place. You're not nomadic. So the Sioux and the Comanche and the Cheyenne, they followed the buffalo around the plains. They were nomadic. They're not a complex society. But complex does not mean better than or smarter than or more sophisticated than. That's just the word we use to describe these societies that have these three particular criteria. Second thing is, it's a class structure, a very strict class structure. Okay? You start with this person right here. He's the cacique. All through the Caribbean and through Florida, the paramount chief from each group of people is called the cacique. Start with him. Then you've got a class of nobles, you've got a class of warriors, a class of priests, and the rest of us, the people who do the work. If you're born in one class, you stay in that class. There's no rising from being a fisherman to being cacique. Right? Plus, if you are in one class, you don't do the things that the other class does. If you're a fisherman, you don't fight in wars. Okay? When the Calusa attacked Juan Ponce de Leon, it was all warriors. There weren't any fishermen involved. Okay? And if you're a warrior, you don't go out fishing. And that's one of the big differences between these complex societies and people like the Cheyenne and the Sioux. If you are a warrior, you're also going to hunt buffalo. Okay? And even the priests, the medicine men, would fight and hunt buffalo. There's more egalitarian than these societies. The third thing is you build. You build cities. You're going to stay in one place. You don't want to just live in tents, so you build cities. Other pre-Columbian cultures were, like the Cahokia in Illinois, you got the Anasazi out west in central Mexico and Central and South America. You had the Aztecs and the Mayans and the Incas, right? And then a whole bunch of different other ones. The difference between all of those and the Calusa is that those other societies were based on agriculture. They grew these vast fields of corn and squash and beans and potatoes and yams. And that's important. If you want to stay in one place, you want to build cities and have what we call a sedentary society, you've got to feed them. And the easiest way to feed them is to grow a bunch of food. The Calusa didn't do that. The Calusa, the Spanish tell us, had small garden plots where they grew papayas and chili peppers and things like that, but they didn't have agriculture. How can they stay in one place if you don't have stuff out in the fields to bring in? Anybody want to guess?
Tree.
Not true. Fish, yes. These estuaries out here are so productive. And I just want to make sure, again, because before I moved to Florida, I did not know what an estuary was. I knew it had something to do with water. I just want to make sure everybody really knows what an estuary is. Very simple. It's a body of water where fresh water from the land mixes with salt water from the sea. And estuaries worldwide are among the most productive ecosystems anywhere. They had fish out here. They had mollusks out here to eat. Okay? That is how they were able to survive without being farmers. All right? The Spanish called the Calusa a race of giants. And you mentioned the size of these guys, right? And the thing is, the Spanish, they didn't mean that they were 7 foot tall. This isn't Shaquille O'Neal. Okay? But they were 5'8", 5'10", with some 6-footers thrown in there. But the Spanish were little. Juan Ponce de Leon was 4'11". So you've got all these, right around 5 foot Spaniards, and you got 5'8", 5'10", 6 foot tall people. The women were taller than the Spanish men. Okay? How do you reckon they got so big? That's right. That's right. Anybody remember one of the great lines in Silence of the Lambs? Remember that? The first time Clarice meets Hannibal Lecter, and he's giving her guff about being from West Virginia, and he says that good nutrition has given you some length of bone. Well, these guys got good nutrition. They got some length of bone. Right? My first year here, doing these tours, I had a class of 5th graders, and that's a tough audience, a really tough audience. And so I'm at this sign, and they're not paying any attention. They're just, they're looking up at the sky, and they're, elbowing each other and all that, except for one guy, standing right where you are. And he was looking at this sign. So I'm talking away, and I'm looking at him, and he's looking at the sign. And I used to teach high school English, and that can be a tough audience too. And so every day I'd come in and think, oh my God, if I can get one kid to realize that, subject-verb agreement is important in your life. And this happened to be my kid. I knew this was going to be my kid, so I started talking to him. And I get finished, and I say, any questions? And he raises his hand. And I said, okay, this is the turning point of my tour. He is going to ask a great question. Those kids are going to say, oh, Billy, he's into this. Let's all get into it. And I said, okay, yeah, what's your question? He says, man, that dude is ripped. And they were. The Spanish tell us they were powerfully muscular. How'd they get so strong? How'd they make a living? Okay, you guys are all paddlers, right?
Yep.
Okay, paddle kayaks. How much does your kayak weigh?
Depends. 85, 80 pounds.
My fishing kayak is 80 pounds.
Okay, and what's it made out of?
Plastic HDPE.
There you go. These guys were paddling tree trunks, cypress tree trunks that they dug out. That'll put some muscle on you. Plus, they were throwing cast nets to make a living. You throwing a cast net, you throw that thing, that you gotta haul it in, and they're also pulling gill nets. Okay, just pulling those gill nets in by hand. That's gonna build you up. That's gonna make you ripped. So, tremendous diet and a lot of really good exercise made these people, Calos, fierce people.